Hey, welcome to Push to Prod. This is Colin, one of your hosts. Actually, the only host these days. We did have a podcast probably a year or so ago, but I thought I want to launch some YouTube videos this time under the same sort of brand and really, I guess, initially focus on just AI coding workflows and things like that, as well as some Rails technologies and sort of changes in that space, which are pretty interesting, all coupled together, really. So I thought, why not kick one off? It is almost Christmas here in Australia, and it is hot. So I have a fan on, so hopefully you can't hear that too bad. But anyway, let's kick in. Basically, this is video one of this. It'd probably be, I don't know how often I'll do this. But I just wanted to start out with sort of the workflow that I've been using and some of the things that I do at the moment with AI and Claude AI and ChatGPT and stuff like that. But also some of the things that I want to look into 2025. Just some of the other tools, because obviously I'm putting this out there potentially to help other people, but also to get comments to pick up. This tech is moving so fast that it's good to just, I guess, the more people you can talk to, the more tips and tricks and tools and things that you come across. So as a result, what I've put this together, I don't know if the screen, I haven't zoomed them right in, trying to keep the aspect ratios on my windows up here a little bit, but it might be hard to read some of the code. And I thought it probably doesn't matter about the code because it's not so much about the code, it's about sort of the workflow that we'll use, what I'm currently doing, and then hopefully over time that will get better and quicker and all that sort of stuff. But I'm going to use a hobby project that I built, and this was pretty much all built on Claude. So I'm a software developer, 20 years, launched startups, sold them, mostly moved off the tools, definitely more of a back-end developer, not a front-end guy. That used to, as React came out and everything sort of went really, front-end heavy, it sort of left me behind. And to be honest, we'll get into this in other videos. I was a little bit against some of the, I thought we were going the wrong way, put it this way, in some of the industry stuff that was happening, which I think is coming back the other way, which will be a whole other topics to discuss. But anyway, so now I'm a little bit more revitalized with, being able to do more of this myself with the help of the AI tools that are out there, which is pretty cool. So I don't know how long this one will be. I'll just show you some of the stuff I have been doing, and then I might take a stab at doing a little bit of work on this and just see where it goes. You don't need to know too much about the product, but basically it is, it just basically tracks, it's a tabletop gaming tournament, regionalized tournament sort of tracking system. So it has a number of different countries as players play this particular tabletop game called Warhammer the Old World. I'm able to pull in some of the results from different platforms that track all that stuff, but then rank them and come up with what's called a master's ranking. So players in a given season know where they sit and they get achievements and things like that. Not only that, I'm trying to grow this into a more community-based site so you can go and find the latest tournaments. Obviously it's Christmas, so they've slowed down, but there's upcoming tournaments in the new year. Where should they go play? How many people are going to the tournaments, things like that. So I think, like Magic the Gathering card games, this is, tabletop gaming. It's pretty big. It's getting bigger. But this is just sort of like a fun hobby thing that I've been doing. Needed it for our country, but basically launched it into, the bigger countries like the UK and the US and things like that. So no, it's been good to be able to build a product pretty much. I mean, the basic basis of this was built in, probably, a few evenings work on Claude, but then obviously over time, last probably 2 months, just hacking away every now and then that I get time. Plus, and I think the AI has just radically made it quicker to build, but also being able to do things that you probably wouldn't have done before, which is what I'm finding with AI. Like some things you go, well, that's really cool and I want to do it, but knowing how much it might take to do, it's not high priority, but now you sort of can, do some of those things. So for example, just as an example, without getting too detailed, things like universal search across, like this goes across all countries and things like that, plus tournaments. So just like real quick, and like that, the speed of that search, plus obviously going across all the country, all the database stuff, is done still in less than an evening, just whereas before it would have been a bit, I don't really need that. It's nice to have, but I think that's what's really helping with that AI is really helping, at least when you're a solo or doing something on the side. And so I guess one thing, so I do use Claude, and I do use ChatGPT. I have paid developer accounts as well as just the sort of professional subscriptions. Most of the time I'm currently working more in the subscription, like just on the web, but I'll look at some of the tools that integrate directly into the IDEs in the future. I have played around with them and we'll probably talk about that as we go, but I have found value in just Claude's project-based stuff and keeping it mostly in there, and then manually copying the files and looking at them and stuff just to I'm a little bit, still haven't got to the point where I'm just letting it go and do it all, but large swathes of it are obviously copied straight in. I just skim it, generally with the help of a tool that I did see out there and it didn't really solve what I wanted. So again, just using AI, I built my own, which is, there's heaps of these out there, but it's basically, I just called it AIKB, which is basically, a way to get your code as munged down as possible to put into the context windows of Claude. And I guess the big difference that I didn't get out of the other, I can't remember what the original one was that I looked at, was sectioning the stuff off. So I can sort of build different sections like front end or back end or a particular slice domain model of the code. And that way I'm keeping it down small. And then, you can check this in, using this with a couple of other teams as well. You can check this file into your team's repo, and that way, as the repo gets bigger, it's easier to sort of keep that slice of code that you probably want the AI to know about. So that's, I do make heavy use of this. I can see myself moving away from this and using Ada or, those other tools that do, a lot of this, probably a lot better, but this is what I've been using lately, and it's been good, especially when I bootstrapped the entire thing initially. It was easy to get everything into the context windows, which has been good. So hopefully that's sort of clear, maybe not. What I probably should do then is talk about what I want to probably do today and just play around and see what happens. And it's a little bit different. Usually I'd build a new feature or adjust something. And I will do that in future videos, especially like some of the UI. There's a lot of work I want to do. But today, so basically what I ran into is, this sidebar was built, again, Claude built it. It mostly works. Sorry, I just clicked off that. But what I've found is as the sidebar has gotten bigger with more menu items, it's not working very well. It doesn't overflow properly and stuff. Sorry, this is in development mode too, so sometimes it has no caching anywhere, so there's a lot of players running around the world, so it's a bit of data in there. But as this sidebar gets big, it doesn't scroll very well. Causes a few issues. And then I noticed that ShadCN, because a lot of the controls under the covers here is ShadCN, produced a new sidebar. And actually I just noticed today it's not listed as new anymore, but I think last week it was. So I'm going to probably see if we can replace the sidebar that we were using, which, is over here. And I did notice that what I'm sharing on my IDE, probably not showing the pop-ups, but when I do that, then my whole browser, I've got a widescreen, so my whole like OS X's top menu bar goes a bit weird. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm just sharing the actual IDE, the IDE contents. So hopefully that's okay and you guys can follow along. But look, this is video 1, so I'm assuming get some feedback whether or not try and make it even bigger and zoomed in. I'm not sure. See I figured it's probably most of the time you want to see the IDE, but a little bit of the browser. That's sort of why I've got that way. Although I can flick it around and I can zoom that in. I also got Fork as my GUI get client in case I want to look at diffs as a as a whole thing rather than just all command line. That's sort of the setup at the moment. Nice and simple, but we'll see how that goes. So I've got ChatCN's instructions up here. Well, firstly, just a quick tech background on what we're actually running here. And again, why I probably have avoided some of the like Cursor and is it Klein and some of the other more AI integrated IDEs. Like I have tried them and I have played around with them other projects, but this one, like this is a Rails app. I do really find it really beneficial to be using RubyMine. It's just the debugger works out of the box, so I can just run it in debug mode all the time, which is good if I am getting into stuff that I want to, break. It's just, I don't know, for those who don't know Ruby or Rails, like I still love it. I think it's bloody quick as to build really rock solid, enterprise level apps really. But yeah, there's the debugging and all that can be a bit crap if you're not using something like RubyMine. That's all when you're using just VS Code, things like that. On top of that, which I think is a really cool, I definitely want to do a series on this. I'm using Inertia.js. Should have got that up. Where are we? As sort of the front end adapter. So if you guys don't know about this, and I will definitely do videos on this because I'm a really big proponent of this. It was originally, I think, a Laravel project, but maybe I'll just go to Inertia.js. It's probably better. But basically, it's building single page apps without the API, which is this is what I'm a fun. You'll hear me crap on about this a lot. I'm a massive believer of this. I hate with a passion API first development. I think it's so wrong, and I'm so happy to see the industry shifting back away from these, server over here and just a front end, and then the API does everything, including serve the front end and third parties and all this. Anyway, I won't get into it at the moment, but I can see a shift back, especially things like Next.js as well, and I think it's just for the better. The apps run faster, there's less chattiness between the front end and the back end, but at the same time, React is friggin' awesome, and it is really good that it sort of won the front end battle in terms of being componentized. But it's fallen into this thing up until recently where always, you were always building either, originally was like REST APIs and stuff. Now it's GraphQL, but it's always plugging this front end and back end. Whereas Inertia's taking the good bits of React or Vue or whatever you're using for the front end and plugging it into the back end and having the back end able to render and actually run the routes and all that sort of stuff. So you just get so much for free when you're using a mature back end framework like Rails or Laravel or something like that. Without having to replicate all the stuff that you see all the time with the React apps, the browser history and all this stuff that you end up having to do in the front end when the back end already does it all. If you're running obviously a monolithic sort of back end, which I think most of the time you should if you're running a startup or something small. You don't want to get too complicated. Anyway, get off my soapbox for now. I'll do that a lot more later in some different apps. But in any case, that's the tech stack sort of at the moment. It's a Rails app as such. So for those who know Rails, there's controllers and all that sort of stuff, and pundit policies, serializers, things like that. Obviously the models, but then you have the front end code, which is the Inertia side. So it's all straight. React basically. So yeah, now the IDE will show some issues around. I mean, that's probably obviously doesn't actually need to be there. But I know some of the TypeScript stuff not perfect and all this at the moment. So there is some errors shown here, but I'm it hasn't caused me an issue at the moment, but it's something that I probably will clean up at some point. It's just me working on this, so less of an issue. So that's sort of the tech stack. So what I wanted to do though is, so there's a bunch of stuff I want to do on this app. It's quite full featured at the moment, but what's happening now is as players, so if I jump, this is a backup of production type thing, but you can sort of see the breakdown of players and users coming into the system. So it doesn't have a heap, but there's 428 users. And so I want to build out the social, like the settings and the profiles, and let them do, more reasons to come back to the product, I guess. So focusing less over the next coming weeks in sort of the the stats and the tournament stuff, and actually trying to give some value to users to come back and upload pictures of their armies, which is what the tabletop gaming thing is, as well as their social links, and follow other people and get emails from events and stuff like that. So I wanted to start playing around with some of this setting. This screen was all built, obviously all this is done out of Claude, but it does have some, like, it's got some scrolling issues based around the contents of this screen. I think it just was a container thing that screwed up. But also if I did, now I don't know if this is going to work. Let's see if it works. Oh, it does. If I scroll this, it sort of screws up the sidebar. It's always happened. It's been less of an issue because I didn't have many things in the menu item. But as I'm starting to add more, it's causing some issues. So I just want to fix that before I get back into like working on the main screens. And that's when I thought, let's check out the ShadCN sidebar component and see if we can bring that in. Now, I haven't done that before where I've like replaced something. Usually I've just, said to Claude, it knows I want to use the ShadCN components, obviously with this, my styling and stuff. And generally it's done that. But I haven't sort of pulled an existing one out. So it's a little different. Don't know how that'll go. See, it might spectacularly fail here. So with that, let's just check that out. Now, the other thing here is I have been using manual install of the components. You can actually get it to work with like Rails and Inertia.js and all that. But the way I'd originally set this up, there was an issue, and it was where it wasn't installing in the right spot, and I just went, oh, bugger it. So I've been manually installing the components I need, which was an issue at the beginning because, you need all buttons and all that, but it wasn't that big a deal now that they're all in there. Plus, it let me see what made up a component in terms of, was it a radix control or was it just straight React, things like that. Anyway, so let's get on to it. So one thing I generally would do in my workflow with my AI KB is make sure I'm obviously in a fresh branch, whatever I want to do. And I'll adjust my AI KB config KB, which is basically, if I open that up, is that split down of my source tree. So I've got all, which is everything. And now that is getting too big. I can't put that in Claude anymore. I used to be able to, and it was really quick. So I split front end, back end. Then I started to split. I was doing, and I was continual. There'll be a lot of work around this sort of tournament results stuff. Because I'm pulling from different systems, and there's a whole service layer and stuff. Anyway, so that made sense to sort of build its own section of that. Rails specs. I will admit there's not heaps of specs. I've sort of told Claude to stop generating tests at the moment. I will go back. I'm finding value in saying, get it to work, and when I know it works, I can actually get it to pump out a heap of tests. As I said, there's a whole import system, like it's connecting through some APIs, some sort of web scraping to pull data from all different systems. And there's about 3 more I want to add, so that's sort of separated into its own Rails domain as well. Email stuff, if I'm working on emails and the formatting and stuff like that. But most of the time for what I'll do today is mostly front end, and I believe this all still fits pretty good. Which pulls all the front-end files, at least the ones we want, Tailwind plus the TypeScript files. Actually noticing that it doesn't pull in the CSS. I don't know if this is a good thing, but I might try and see, because I know there's a couple of like application CSS, and I just can't remember where that one is, but let's just have a look. So that's generally what I'll do, something like this generally. And I always update. So I run that just if NPX, it's on if I publish a new version of that tool, I can just keep running NPX, pulls the latest version down. You're welcome to go on there, just search for, where was it? Gomo AIKB on GitHub if you want to check that out. Pull this front end file in and then see how much it sucks out of Claude here. So it's pretty big. I've also got setup project instructions, which sort of just sits there and tells the project where things are. I want to avoid like React FC when it's building components, stuff like that. It's pretty standard. I think I've got ChatGPT to do that. What I tend to find is if I'm working on my project and doing the code, I'm using Claude. But if I want to do like research stuff or one-off stuff, I'll jump to ChatGPT because I'm not chewing through my Claude stuff. Because you can definitely, in one night session, within an hour or two, I can just smash through the Claude project. I actually have 2 subscriptions. Hence, I do want to start using Ada and stuff a little bit more, using the dev, the API, because I believe that's cheaper. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this has worked great. And to be honest, if I'm spending $20, $40, $60 a month, but being productive, I don't care. I'll spend the money, so it's fine. Obviously, you need multiple accounts for that to work. So this is, I haven't done this one, and I'm pretty sure Claude's not going to have this in there because it was pretty new. So I'm going to tell Claude that we're going to be, want to make use of a new shad CN component for the sidebar and replace our sidebar groups, etc. with it. Obviously, but that's not how you spell. Styled the same as our current sidebar. Here's some details about the new shad CN component, and then let's replace ours. So I'm going to just go through, I'll give it the actual shad CN component as well, and I believe, because I did skim this, it's got these global CSS to adjust our app CSS. I think it's application. And then we've got, they had another doc here, the Tailwind, yep. And Tailwind. And then they have an example, because I looked at this earlier about the app layout. Here we go. So let's have a look at this. It'll need adjustment to our main layout, similar to I'll just post this in, it'll work it out. Well, let's see. Maybe let's just see what it does first. Let's see what it says. Okay. So he's talking about adjusting our files. There's our layout change. Rest of your header content. Okay. So I'm going to create a new app sidebar. Globe calendar. Okay. Yeah, that's... See, but that's still using sidebar group. I don't think that's worked properly. Oh, sidebar UI sidebar item that has come from okay, let's just have a look here, because if I look at the shad CNs, I'm going to copy over I'm not sure it's used. I think it's, I don't know, my gut feel is getting a bit confused with our sidebar stuff, because I've got, we have a sidebar group, sidebar item. It's not using that, so maybe that is right. What I might first do, I actually don't put the shad CN stuff in UI components. That's what's making me feel a bit that it's a little bit confused. So I'm going to go and paste this guy in to shad CN as sidebar. So you're not going to see my pop-up, unfortunately, over here, but That's okay. So I'm just skimming. You don't need to see all this. Okay, and then, yeah, I don't think it's. I'm gonna tell it. It needs to make sure. Let's first get the shad CN component added into our components UI shad CN folder, as well as fix the paths and any hooks, because it definitely has this mobile hook. Yeah, I like how you can just sort of make spelling mistakes and it works it out. So I'm going to tell it to fix that. Okay, so it wants to put this use mobile hook in, which is cool. I'm not putting it in that folder. I'm putting it in a different one because, again, I've got it under shad CN, and it's obviously got, I don't know why it hasn't picked that up, but anyway. So do that. Let's create the adapted sidebar component. Yeah, okay, so it has fixed most of these. The hook's in the wrong directory, but that's okay. Hey, it's in, it's probably going concise mode, so it's cut a bunch of stuff out, but that's okay. Let's just make sure all these are in the right spot. It's really just the imports. Also don't think that use hook is in the right spot. Yeah, come on, let's work. Okay. God. When you start recording, you can't type. It's kind of funny. Okay, so that's come in. Now, I don't have sheet and skeleton for sure because I don't think I've used them. So I'm going to have to grab them. Let's grab skeleton, manual. Cool. There's just a file for that by the look of it. Again, if you're using the shad CN install stuff, you don't need this. Just forgive me for not having that set up. Something happened when I set this all up and it just wasn't working, so I just ignored it for a while and never gone back and fixed it. Sheet, manual. Okay, it needs yarns. Let's grab that. Like it needs a radix control. I swear I have React dialog in there, probably. And then sheet. Paste that one in, and then these will just need, it might resolve once it indexed. Yes, it does. Cool. Okay, so that's cool. Now what's it talking about? Okay, so that's all good. What I'd like to do is I'll actually show you guys. I've just indexed the, like I've updated my project knowledge base again. So now that front end code, and this is what I'll do a lot. It's got that new sidebar. So now I can come in here and go, I've updated the project knowledge base with this new shad CN sidebar. So let's now rename our old sidebar to app sidebar and begin using the features in the shad CN sidebar whilst maintaining the existing styling and menu sidebar contents, I guess. Yeah, spelling mistakes. Again, it's pretty good at fixing this stuff, so you can just ignore most of that. We should bring this one up more if I'm mostly on the Claude setup. The other thing I do while it's just generating that is just looking at the fork stuff, which is the GUI client here, is I find it valuable to, you don't have to commit everything. And obviously Ada is going to commit a lot more when you're using those tools and stuff, although I guess you can disable that. But it is cool still to be able to like stage the changes and then run it again if you need to adjust it and see what it's done and things like that. So you can sort of compare That's why I don't mind like copying a whole new file out. Obviously, when it's done things like this, where it's like said rest your header, rest it, like you have to check. You can't just copy all this in. But actually, sometimes I'll just tell it to give me a whole fresh piece of code, you know. Okay, so this is app sidebar. Okay, this looks better because, I mean, you wouldn't know this, but obviously I've built it. Yeah, there's more menu items than what they gave me before. So that's why I was like, hang on, that doesn't seem right. So that's closer to what is already there. And then it's not using that sidebar group. Well, I mean, it's got it there, but I think that is the Shad CN one. Let's have a look. Yeah, okay, so that's looking better because it's coming from Shad CN, the group, the menu, and stuff like that. So I'm a bit more confident that looks like it's been adjusted, but we'll leave the old one in there. And just create a whole new app sidebar. Dump that in. I hate that it documents the file name, but that's what it is. And I don't need this React thing. Cool. It's obviously done some imports that we don't need, but we'll see. And then, yeah, our main menu layout definitely would have to change because it wasn't using like a provider or anything. And it's got some controls around, you know, is the sidebar open and all that. So I expect that is all handled by Shad now. There's no sidebar trigger. I think that's a mobile thing. Oh, hang on. That's over here. Oh, it's in the header. So it's funny how it does that, and then it's in the header. Okay. That's just, it's funny. It's getting some of the imports confused, but I mean, it's not too bad. So the header, they've just given me a little bit here. Replace the old menu button with. Okay, it's probably this bit. Header div, yeah. There's a lot of other stuff in there though, not just, so it's annoying when it does that stuff. I'm just going to be lazy and say, list out the whole header. TSX, please. Obviously it chews through my credits, but whatever. If I wasn't recording, I'd probably fiddle around with it. It's also nice to see if you can do it all itself. Now, I noticed it talked about styling. I'm pretty sure because I got sidetracked, I didn't move any of the styling. Did it actually give me that stuff? Okay, here. Yeah, okay. While it's doing that, let's have a look. Root dark. Okay, so there's new... Oh yeah, there's new sidebar stuff. And new normal light mode. Funny that there's duplicate. No, it doesn't matter. And then we want tailwind update with colors sidebar. Let's throw that in. This should be our header. That's interesting. If I go to the main layout, it's still going to be whinging about this sidebar trigger, which I don't need. Well, I don't think I need it. Maintains all existing. Again, I won't go through all this stuff with you guys because you don't know. There's more to do with what code I've got in there. It's obviously not finding an import, which is apps. Oh yeah, I don't know why it's done dot. I guess it doesn't know where I've put it. Let's get rid of that. Correct it. For some reason RubyMine keeps putting TSX files on the end of it. Oops, sorry. Oh yeah, that's right. We've moved this. Oh, okay. Hang on. Might have screwed that import of the hook up. That's okay. Ah, I don't know what I did there. Okay. Cool. It's totally the wrong color. Just zoom back and look at that. Sometimes what I'll do here too, which is pretty good, I'll just screenshot it. And just go, sidebar is appearing white and not our red gradient background. I mean, with the ShadCN sidebar too, I'm going to definitely redo how I'm using the sidebar and the profile stuff because it looks a lot better design than the original one that Claude got me to build. You know, it's just a little bit more, I guess, locked into sticky footer and stuff. So I definitely want to make use of that. But I'll do that again. Okay, how to fix it. So it's saying adjust the app sidebar, hey? Or the use of the sidebar in here. Yeah, gradient. It's a lot of that. I think I've seen this. Can we add overrides to application CSS instead? Okay. I don't really like the look of that. Nah. Don't like that. I don't want that all over the place. But anyway, let's just go with this, see what it does. What did it say initially? Out of this, get the gradients. Still seeing any? If you're still seeing, okay, well that's okay. Just do the first one. Okay, well that's. Okay, well we're getting closer to what I don't expect it to look exactly the same, but and the font sizes are a little different. I don't have a collapse button. What does mobile look like? I think that collapse stuff's just mobile, right? Ew. Okay. Ew, but then the mobile's screwed as well. That screwed my little logo up there. But overall, let's just see what the scrolling... Okay, yeah, so we've got a sticky footer, which is a bit better. Now interesting. Okay, I'm happy to keep working on this one then because it's... I'm pretty sure this page is wrong. See, it's got this, like it's up here, it's not the full width. I'm pretty sure so we generated this settings page right at the beginning and I didn't go back and look at it because the players couldn't really edit stuff on it anyway. I even had like some notices here saying, look, it's in development. They can click whatever they want, but it doesn't do anything. But I hadn't gone back and fixed it, that's hence what I started to do when I realized maybe I need to sort the menu, the sidebar button. So whatever the ShadCN sidebar has done is at least got it closer to what I want it to be doing. So I'm feeling good there. But obviously the styling is a little bit weird. Like so this, for some reason it's put white dividers. This is an admin feature only, this feedback thing. So it's adjusted some of the menu groupings and things, but obviously and the font size has gone down and obviously did some weird things with the header logo and stuff, but ultimately it's closer. I shouldn't say closer, but you know what I mean? Like it's probably a good foundation to start working off. Because that other page was totally busted with the scroll, so... And it wasn't a sticky footer. So I think it's worth keeping this branch and just keep working on it. Okay, yeah, it's doing some things so it's lost a few functionality. Like when you're not in the Australia region, again, this is domain, not this product specific. this master's ranking should be sort of grayed out a little bit. It's still, sorry, it's more faded out. It's actually still valid, but it's like I've usually get a pop up. Well, you'll get a pop up here saying that these rankings are like example. So this master's ranking is really only applicable to Australia, and we're just showing what the other regions would look like, US and stuff, if they were doing the same thing as the Australia region. So I sort of put some pop-ups just to warn people. I've dismissed the pop-up on my side here, so that's why it's not coming back up. So that's lost a little bit of functionality, but I'm assuming that's not going to be hard. And then the other thing is with inertia, one of these links, it's the background job one. Yeah, okay. This is actually supposed to be like an external link that goes out of the Rails inertia.js sort of domain. I won't get into how inertia.js works. Maybe there'll be a link at some point to my inertia.js series. But that link should act a bit different, whereas these are all fine. They're like single page app links. That's deliberately broken. Don't worry about that. Yeah, cool. Interesting. That page is busted too with its layout. So there's a few little things that have gone wonky with the layout since moving to that sidebar. But the fact that sidebar seems to behave a bit that way, I think I'm going to keep plugging away at it, which will be good. I'm not sure how long this has gone for, but that might be a good place to stop, because that way I can check this one in on the branch, obviously, and then start iterating off it. Let me know if you are watching this, is this the type of thing that's interesting, even though obviously you don't know anything about the product, seeing someone's back and forth with the IDE, using that, and also just the layout of this screen. Is it too far? Is it too small? If so, I'm going to have to fill around with it a little bit. But yeah, I plan on like doing new features as well, and especially with the Rails backend as well, and letting it, do both sides of the front end and the back end, and just as I add features and things that I need, just to sort of start showing people what I'm doing, but also get tips about using Ada or Cursor with Ruby and Rails, and because I know I can run Ruby mine here and still have Cursor, for example, running. I've done that before, but probably more interested in launching Ada and using those command line ones. I think they're pretty cool. I have used it on another project and it's working okay. I just haven't used it in this one too much. But yeah, definitely feeling that it speeds you up, like you could sit there and still hack away at putting this sidebar in yourself, but I do feel like it gets you a fair way faster than at least what I would do, especially when you get into front end stuff, because I don't really want to know how to do much of the front end in terms of the style. I just wanted to be able to componentize, plug it together and have it laid out and work. So, as I migrate more of it to full shad CN components, hopefully that would generally fall out the other end. Cool. Anyway, yeah, first video on this sort of type of thing on this channel. So hopefully you found it. Maybe there'll be hashtags that help people find this, and like, subscribe, all the usual stuff. And I'll try put a few of these out. So thanks a lot. Have a good Christmas if you are watching that pretty much once I've released this. Otherwise, yeah, good New Year 2025, and yeah, keep coding with AI, I guess. Cheers, guys.